Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. Today we have Dan Sackos. We found him. All right. Sit back and relax. Enjoy an hour with Dan. Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. And today our special guest is Mr. Dan Sackos. How are you, Dan?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you. How are things on the West Coast?
Today is a little nasty, but in general, great.
Nasty weather, overcast?
Yeah.
We've fought through a couple of hurricanes last couple of weeks up down here. Nothing touched me, but the east coast of Canada was hit by Fiona, and the east coast of America was hit by I think it was Ian. They called it. So yeah. So I was just in Virginia at the Beagle National, and Wayne Kavanaugh said to say hello.
And, nice.
Yeah, and we thought we'd get a little bit of the hurricane there in Virginia, but it didn't hit us. We had a great week there. So
I was once at a dog show in an indoor arena, and it began to rain outside, and as it did, it started running in the doors, and the floor of the arena had like 4 inches of water in it. We were walking around in it. Was it's pretty incredible.
We've all been through those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's what we do. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, man, let's go. Tell me how you got started in the sport of dogs, Dan.
Well, when I was a kid, my dad gave me $50 to buy a dog, and I bought a Scotty out of the newspaper. He came with his own exercise pen and his crate, the dog, and 50 pounds of dog food for $50. I think that was a pretty good deal. And as time went by, my parents could see that I was really into the dog, and I wanted to start going to show this dog at dog shows, and it was a pretty sad little Scotty, to be honest with you. So they bought me another one out of California, and I showed it around Tucson. And they got more and more interested, as did I. And I finished that dog in 1959. And
what were you then, Dan?
8.
8? Wow, that's a real dog. Wow.
And so, my dad sent me to study with some different people, Jeannie Cairns, who understood the physical nature of dogs and taught me about what makes things work and why. And, I wasn't allowed to show a dog until I understood all the muscles of a dog. So it was pretty interesting. And then over a period of time, my parents actually moved to Southern California, and then I began to get in touch with a lot of the local Scotty people, huge names in the breed, and as time went by, I got more and more involved in showing, and then I started working for a couple of different handlers. I worked for Johnny Coughlin, who taught me pretty much everything that I know about grooming. And then
how old were you? I hate to keep interrupting. How old were you at this point when you were working for a handler?
Oh, I was
not 9.
I was old enough to drive by the time I went to work for John.
Okay.
Because I had to finish school, jump in my car, and drive out to the other valley to get to where he lived very near where Rick Kashudian lived in some valley. So, and he had come over. He is a Welshman that grew up breeding wire fox terriers. He and there were 4 of those guys. One of them was One of them was Peter, and they all grew up together competing against each other. And then Peter came over and showed him how easy it was, I guess. And so John followed. Johnny came over and worked for Rick for a while and to get his feet under him. Then he went out on his own, and I worked for John. And I worked for him for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years.
Wow, that's good.
And then I went to work for Mike Shea for a while. And the problem with working for John, I learned a lot about grooming and hard work and all that sort of thing. But John was not the social part of the game. I never learned that from him. I never learned it from anybody. So Mike was more into the social part of the game, but still he wasn't teaching me that stuff. I did get a chance to see it. And then I moved back to Michigan for a while and didn't show dogs back there at all.
Oh, so whereabouts in Michigan were you?
In Flint.
Flint, okay.
And so I worked back there for quite a while, but I didn't show my dogs. I took my dogs, but I didn't show them. And then
hotbed terriers, like Mr. Ward there. I'm surprised you didn't try to show dogs there.
Yeah, I was good friends with George, but I never showed dogs when I was back there. Maybe that's why I stayed friends with him. Then I decided to come back to California, and when I came back to California, there were a bunch of the Scotty people who remembered me. That's why everybody calls me Danny in the dog show business, because I started when I was so young.
Yeah.
And so these different Scotty folks brought me dogs and asked me to show them. And one of the first ones that brought me a dog, I was excited about, and I got the dog trimmed up, and we went to the Scottish Terrier Roving National as an open dog, and I went best of breed at the National.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was pretty good. And that kind of got me thinking, well, maybe I should just try to do this as a living, because I hated working. I made a lot more money working, but I didn't like it. So I didn't like people telling me what to do. So
yeah, that kind of follows all of us around in this world, in our sport.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I just I started to go to more and more dog shows and take on more and more dogs, and then I got involved in Scotty's. Was an easy transition to Sealyham's, and then from Sealyham's I got a client who brought me some Irish Terriers to show, and I did well with those. And then, of course, I did really good with Smooths. I had some big winners.
You're just jumping over a bunch of dogs there, man. I want to know how you got them, or how you how old were you at this point when you went on your own?
Probably late 20s.
Okay.
So, and at that time, it was really stupid of me to go on my own, to be honest with you. There were so many.
You worked for a lot of people for time anyway. You worked for both the handlers and well over 7 years.
I work and good people, honest people. They taught me a lot of really good life lessons and a lot about dogs. But they weren't the most politically savvy people. And in the dog game, you have to be politically savvy as well. So I missed out on that. But I did okay.
I think you did just fine.
And John taught me some things that I was able to parlay later, but that weren't necessarily showing dogs. They were in dogs, but not showing dogs. And I was able to really make a ton of friends over the years with that ability. So, yeah, I know everybody.
So what was the first dog that you showed on your own that was impactful that you started opening people's eyes with?
Well, I guess the Irish Terrier, Rough and Ready Rock and Roll.
Now, was he before the Sealies?
I don't want to say he was before all of them, but yeah, I think he was before all of them. Okay. I don't really remember the chronological order of them. I did a lot of winning in Sealians.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that, and I was down here. So
yeah, I was in Mexico at a dog show one time, standing in line for lunch, and these people in front of me were talking, and the one says to the other, "Did you see the Sealy guy is here?" It just cracked me up.
Exactly.
The Sealy guy. Never thought of myself that way, but okay.
Look, I can, in my head, I can still see pictures of you showing Sealies. So
yeah, I showed a lot of Sealies. I was telling somebody, I was talking to Scott the other day, and he was telling me how hard Airedales were, and he didn't ever want to do Airedales. And I said, man, I used to go to Great Western and carry 7 Sealiums with me. That's as hard a dog to groom as there is. You need a hammer and chisel to have.
George told me they were the hardest terrier to trim.
It's a really bugger. But they did really well for me. I had lots of winning Irish, or lots of winning Sealiums. And then I had Cagney, that's Rough and Ready Rock and Roll, and he still has the record for most specialty bests of any Irish Terrier ever. He was a terrific dog.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw him in life. I saw lots of pictures. He sure looked a beauty. So
yeah, he was a really, really wonderful dog, and he set me on my my Irish Terrier journey. I've been breeding Irish Terriers ever since. So been a long, long time.
Yeah, they're a beautiful breed to watch. Some of my best times watching at shows are Irish Terriers, just because how they act out there, how they grow when they see each other.
I feel really bad because I think right now I probably have the best ones I've ever had in my life, and they'll never go off my property. They just are here for me to look at.
Yeah, well, that's what it comes down to. So
yeah, that's what I've decided I enjoy the most, is just I have these different paddocks throughout my property, and I have like 2 Irish in each paddock, and I just go sit and watch my dogs run around. It's really quite rewarding.
You still enjoy trimming them?
No. I don't trim them all. All my dogs are pretty much, all of them are clippered off, and of course, I believe that
you were so good at it. So I guess.
Well, yeah, to a point, and then you can't do it anymore.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, especially to keep them up.
If I were to groom a dog, by the end of the day, I would have a very sore shoulder, and it would take me a couple of weeks to get over it. And it's just not worth. It's not worth that.
So where did you go from Cagney?
I think Bobby, my Sealium that did so much winning, and no, before him there was the Happy Dale's Thomas J. Andre, which Margaret Schools owned, and he won a lot. He best in show at Santa Ana that one time. And in those days, I know that doesn't mean much to East Coast folks, but I was showing against Clay and Burgett and Eddie Boys and Marippy. Marippy was just a fantastic groomer. And Woody, and there was a ton. I mean, if you got to go 4th in the group, you were happy. You really did something. You beat some of them just going 4th. There were so many of them.
Yeah, well, it's a hotbed.
It was tough sledding in those days, but it made you a better groomer, better handler because you had to be.
Oh, exactly. Competition breeds competition. So
I hated it then, but I look back on it really fondly now,
Yeah, I agree. Like when you walk into an area where there's a lot of competition in your group, you have to up your game to compete. So
you bet. Competition isn't a bad thing at all. It's a good thing.
It's the best thing for business too. I've always said that. So.
Oh yeah, and the people today that think, oh, it's too bad that little Bobby didn't win and we give him a participation trophy. No, little Bobby's going to be pissed and want to win next time, but he's going to work harder at it, and that's a good thing.
There's no question. I agree with that aspect of it. I'm not so sure. When they started giving out ribbons basically for just being there, so that's not giving them any motivation.
Right, exactly. I mean, when I was a kid, you got a trophy for every placement in every class. So for me, I always wanted the next bigger trophy.
No question.
And that made me better at it. So I think competition is just a fantastic thing.
I wholly agree with that, Dan. So what was that? What was after those dogs? I still remember a smooth fox terrier that you made some impact with too.
Yeah, I had I had a dog that I can't even remember his name really, but I had been winning everything. He was the number one smooth in the country, and then my friend, I had some longtime friends they were in Texas. Now they're in Arizona, but they were in Texas by the name of Dawsets. And they called me up and said, hey, we've got this guy. We're going to sell him this puppy, and we want you to show the puppy. So I said, sure, no big deal. Well, the puppy came over, and it was a stunner. I mean, it was a stunner. And along with him came this kid to help me with the shows, work for me. It's kind of part of the deal. I got the dog and the kid, and he was a Mexican kid by the name of Gabriel Rangel.
Oh, I think I've heard of him.
Yeah. So he worked for me for quite a while. And I think he taught me as much as I taught him. He was such an artist, Yeah. And to this day, he's like a son. So
he's amazing. Gabe's amazing. When I interviewed Gabe, it was just like we could have gone on for hours. He just kept going. Yeah. It seemed like it was hard to get him to sit down and do it. We kept our schedules didn't work out. Oh my God! Once we sat down, he just kept going and going. It was a great interview.
He's been so kind to me. I'll call him up, or he calls me, but I'll call him up, and he answers the phone, and he says, real quiet, like he says, "What do you need, Dan?" And I said, "Well, I just wanted to chit chat." He said, "Well, let me call you back because I'm in the ring." So he's been extremely kind, and he's a terrific guy.
Yeah, he sure is. How long was Gabe with you?
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Quite a while.
Stories about that was probably fun.
When he first started, he was he loaded the first time he ever loaded my truck. He loaded it with all the crates facing one another. Well, you just don't do that in a terrier truck. So he didn't know how to set up the exercise pens, and he had been raised with Great Danes, and he's used to scratching them on their back and slapping them on their back. Well, he'd slap my poor little, Smooth on the back and drop him to his knees,
Yeah, Gabe's a big boy.
Yeah, and those mitts of his, they're huge. Yep. So, yeah, he was a delight. But he's not the only one. I mean, I had Dino Moralia. I don't know if you know who he is, but he went back to Brazil, but he was the head of the Brazilian Kennel Club, and he's an esteemed lawyer there. Done some really great work in the civil rights into things in Brazil, and he's just a terrific guy and worked really hard for me.
How long was he with you?
No, he was with me for about 4 years, and he still breeds Dobermans and wires and all kinds of stuff. He's into dogs. I don't know how big his place is, but he must have a huge place. So yeah, and there were several others. Carlos Huerta, who's a dog trainer now, and excuse me, a few others. But
when we're going to go back a bit because we talked about a few of your mentors. I'm just wondering, is there any more that made an impact on you that they may not even know they made an impact on you?
Well, I used to go to dog shows when I was 10 years old and watch Rick go Best in Show with Chances Are.
Yeah.
In those days, you stayed to Best in Show. Everybody did. I mean, there were as many people there for Best in Show as there was for the first class in the morning. That was you took a picnic lunch and your doggy and you went, and, it was an all-day affair. And it was a fun affair. And I used to really admire Rick, and Rick over the years was extremely kind to me, very, very helpful, very wonderful. And anybody that ever says to you that Rick wasn't open to helping young people, I'm here to tell you he really, really was.
Yeah, that's all I've ever heard about him. He's out. I got to know him quite well because he came to shows down here, and he would judge a lot too. But he was, even as a judge, he was helpful. He'd pull me aside and tell me I should try this and try that.
Yeah. And then, of course, as a Scotty kid, I was always totally enamored with Bob Bartos. He went Best in Show at the Garden with Bingo, and I saw that, and it just sets chills down my spine to see that dog and the way he showed and the way he looked, and I just loved that dog, and so then I loved Bob ever since.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah, well, him and I've got tons of pictures. Him and I went there together the first time he ever met Bob, and he brought Sadie, and Bob taught him little things that when Bob was telling him, I'm thinking, well, why didn't I tell him that? Bob taught me that. I should have taught him that too, But Bob really helped him a lot, I think.
Yeah.
And he was extremely nice to him. I went to his 100th birthday party just before he died. He was a wonderful guy.
Well, what's the background on Bob? I don't know much of his background.
Well, he worked for Carnation Farms. They made dog food in those days. And he had, in that kennel, he had 100 Scotties, 100 Sealyhams, and 200 Golden Retrievers. So it was a huge operation. And I think as all of us grew older and talked, I remember just what kind of reverence Rick had for Bob. And that just told me a lot about, how good Bob was and how smart he was about dogs. If Rick thought you were one of the greats, you were one of the greats. Rick thought that way about Bob. He thought that way about George Ward. George was extremely kind to me too. I think it's because Rick told him that I was a good kid, and George was just wonderful to me too. So there are a lot of people that just help you along the way,
Yeah, we need them. We all need those people.
Yeah.
It's amazing who impacts us that they don't even really know they impact us.
Yeah. And they knew that, I was in a really tough place in Southern California with the competition that it was, and I needed their help, and they helped me. Mm-hmm. I was very kind to them.
Sure. Sure. No aspirations with judging, Dan?
Physical limitations would keep me from doing that, but I've never really had much. I thought about it for a little while, but they asked me to do the Welsh Terrier specialty at Montgomery a couple of years ago, and I turned them down. So, it's not, I don't have the personality for it.
Now, what if the Irish Terrier Club contacted you?
Well, I would make every effort to do that, but they won't. So
never say never. You never know.
Yeah. No, I don't think those days are coming for me, and that's okay. I enjoy doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I have grandkids now, and that takes up most of my time babysitting, and pretty much
you send me some woodworking too.
And I do woodworking, yeah. I don't know, I guess I sent you a couple pictures of some of the things I do, but I do some pretty rewarding things that when you send them out to people and they, ooh and ah over them, that's really fun.
Of course, yeah, for sure.
So it's kind of like the same thing as grooming a dog. You just have to be patient and to pay attention to details, and then the reward is sort of the same. You get lots of people telling you, oh my God, that's great, and that's, I'm an attention hound, so.
Nothing wrong with that. I think we all are to a degree.
Yeah, well, that's why we do what we do, right?
Yeah. Now, if a young person came to you today and said they wanted to be a professional dog handler, if you couldn't talk them out of it, well, what advice would you give them?
Work really hard. Be honest about how hard they're working. Don't cheat. Don't take shortcuts. When you're sitting around chit-chatting and sleeping, the other guy is working, so you better work too.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty, don't expect to get rich doing it, but it's a pretty rewarding thing. I mean, I got to travel all over the world, and have people in other countries recognize who I am. You realize how special that really is. I mean, that's amazing. So yeah, I would tell a kid to go for it. Although I discouraged my own children from doing it. So.
No, were they interested?
No.
No, my boys aren't interested either.
No.
Adam is my adopted son. He's the one. He's interested. So
yeah. I guess at this point, my son, one of my sons is kind of interested in picking up my breeding program as I get to where I really can't even do that much anymore. Yeah, him and his wife are interested in continuing that, which is rewarding because I don't want that to go away. I think I'm really on to something, and I don't want it to just disappear.
Right. That's good news.
So I'll help them as much as I possibly can get to understand and know what I look for, and maybe they can look for, and hopefully I can direct them down the right road.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I know you say you didn't go ahead and judge. You judged some. You did sweepstakes and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some. I did. What is it? I did Great Western, the group at Great Western, the sweepstakes group there.
Well, that'd be good.
And that was pretty interesting. I actually put up somebody I didn't really care for very much. So
it's the way it goes, right?
Yeah, they had the best dog. What are you going to do? I hated it, but I did it. So, yeah, I judged a few different things, this and that. Smooth fox terriers a bit. I love smooths,
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about your smooths. We touched on them, but we didn't talk about them.
Yeah. Well, Two Fox White Hunter was, I guess, the dog we were getting into there, and
yeah, that's the dog
he did a lot of winning. First, he was owned by Sergio Balcazar, and Gabriel was my assistant while I showed him. And in the beginning, he caused me a lot of pain because I handed him off to Gabriel, and I kept showing this dog that had been winning right along, and Gabriel beat me, which he should have, but that doesn't really help with my client very much.
No,
and when he did it a couple of times in a row at huge shows at, back at the specialties before the garden, as I recall, my client got pretty upset about it, didn't want me to let him show the dog anymore. But then I had another client who wanted their dog shown, so I had to just let him go and do it. And when he beat me, I think it was the third time, I got fired from the first one.
Oh, jeez.
Which was okay, because then I could take over Hunter and do the things I did. And he did great things. I mean, I won a group on the Mission circuit. I'm sure you don't know what that is.
I do.
But it's a huge, in those days anyway, they were huge dog shows. I mean, they were 3,000 dogs. They were, a few hundred terriers there. And every handler that was anybody was there, had flown in from all around the country. And I won the group on Hunter with everybody there. And that was enormous. In fact, I won first, second, and third in that group. So that was a really good day.
Yeah, I bet.
No wonder it sticks out in my mind. Huh? So yeah, he did a lot of winning, and made me, made a lot of people recognize who I was. That was very nice. And then I did it for my friends, the Dossets. And that was good.
Yeah. Now, you touched on judging, and I stopped because I want to talk about White Hunter. If someone came to you and they wanted to be a Irish Terrier judge, what advice would you give them?
Well, Irish Terriers are not large red wire fox terriers. There's a difference. And if they don't look like an Irish, then they're not an Irish. You can't have short backs in Irish Terriers. You just can't. You can't have those narrow, bumpy heads in Irish. You just can't. They're closely related to Kerry Blues, and they have more of the Kerry Blue head than the Wire Fox Terrier head, and people don't get that. They all want to see these Wire Fox Terrier pusses on them, and that's not who they are. And so there's a lot to understand, but it's a fantastic breed. I mean, we have almost no health problems. I just breed two dogs. Sometimes things will pop up, but I don't expect to ever have a health problem, ever.
That's amazing.
Which is, yeah. So many breeds these days have all these different things that can go wrong.
I didn't have a lot to do with to know about Irish Terriers until I started, spending some time with RC, and I got to meet Irish Terriers and help him, and I really got to enjoy watching the breed. I'd love to go and watch the breed, especially the Montgomery or the Garden. Either way, I just love watching the breed competition.
Yeah.
Love the way they carry themselves.
I've actually had judges tell me they're not supposed to be pretty. And it just drives me nuts. Yeah. And there's so many of them have very low tail placements. I mean, they're like any other terrier. You want the tail up on top of the back, But shortness of loin, length of rib is really a big portion of what an Irish Terrier should be.
Well, I think if they're short back, you wouldn't be able to call them racy at all. So
no, you wouldn't. And if they have a 50-50 split between loin and rib, what you get is that bouncy top line. When you see them going around the ring and their top line's going like this, you know that the rib to loin ratio is not right.
Yeah, because it softens the structure.
Right. Weakens the structure in any breed.
Of course, yeah.
So, and that slight rise that is called for in the standard is slight, not huge, but it is sort of like you have in any breed that's meant to run, like greyhounds have that rise.
Yeah.
They're meant to be able to stretch out and go. That's part of that, and the strength that it takes to hold that up later like that. So, yeah. There's a lot of things about Irish Terriers. I could talk to you hours and hours about that.
And I'd like it. So we're all here to learn. So again, so you would give that advice for a judge. What else would you tell them? Was there something else you would tell them besides Irish Terriers? Is there something you would try to instill upon them that they need to?
Yeah. Well, exactly. I just think judges in general don't think about enough about what an influence they have on what they're doing to a breed.
Right. And the responsibility they have.
Because in general, people breed to winners. So they're going to breed their dogs according to what that judge puts up. And that judge can help or hurt a breed pretty quickly, actually. And I think it's really incumbent on the judge who's there doing this thing to pay attention and do their best to get it right, and seek out somebody who really knows and doesn't have an axe to grind, and see how much you can learn. You owe it to what you're doing. I mean, you owe it to the people. Just mailing it in is not good enough. You can't do that. Scott Summers and I were just talking about this last week about you need judges to really study what they're doing.
Well, it's like I said, it's a huge responsibility they've been given, and you expressed why. So
yeah, and many of them, I think, see it as more or less just a club that they belong to. We're judges. We get to eat our lunch over here separately from everybody, and we're big fancy people. But that doesn't do the breed much good. And the whole point is, as breeders, as judges, as handlers, we're there to try to improve upon the breed. I understand handlers, because I did it too. We show the dog that's brought to us. We make the best out of it. That's what we have to do. We have to make a living. We got to put food on the table for our families. But I don't think it behooves a handler even to promote a dog that he knows is not of quality.
Right.
Can you hide the faults? Sure you can, or some of them anyway. But so if you want to go out there and show them as hard as you can, do that. But don't go around telling people it's the best one you've ever had, because that's what a lot of people do. So,
and that creates problems, especially because next year you come out with the same breed and that one is better. Well, what about last year? We all know the story, right? I always try to stay general. Well, that's a different style of dog. They're two different dogs.
I think everybody should have to go sit down and spend about an hour with Pat Trotter.
Oh yeah.
She'd teach you.
That's for sure. I want to talk about this first. Montgomery's this weekend. Does it ever stir things inside you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to be there. There's not any dogs that I have any kind of interest in there this year, but there has been in the past, and maybe there will be in the future. I don't know. But it's always fun to go sit at ringside and just watch.
Yeah.
And it's not just Irish. I mean, I would love to see Smooths. I would love to see. I just love Kerry Blues. Celium's obviously is one of the ones I like to watch. Although that's more like the Marjorie Good national specialty. She just beats up on everybody.
She sure does.
So,
all right, one last question, Dan. If you were to meet the 20-year-old Dan Sackos now, is there any advice you'd give him?
Not much. I liked what I did. It was really hard. And I didn't make as much money as I would have liked to, but maybe put a little more attention to the political side of everything, like me, like my product. And I didn't spend much time trying to make people like me. So, it would be smart for me to spend more time on the social side of it. But I really loved what I did.
Well, and you could tell, and not like I told you before, like I'd be standing in a circle of guys or dog people, and your name would just pop up in a positive way. So,
well, that's very nice to hear.
It is. It happens more than once. That's why I started nagging you about an interview.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Makes me feel special.
I was actually, when I interviewed Richard Powell, he brought your name up constantly. So,
well, I love Richard.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We had a good conversation. So what's next? What are you going to do now?
I don't know. We've sold our property to my son, and we're building a small home for my wife and myself. We don't need this enormous house we have now.
You're building on the property?
We're building on our property, yeah. So
that's good.
My son has to put up with me for a few more years.
I'm sure he'd be fine with it.
He's pretty cool. Yeah.
Any woodworking on the go right now?
Oh, yeah. I'm making a sign right now for the company that's doing my house. I'm building them a sign for their office, 6 foot long and 30 inches tall, with their logo and their name in it, engraved in it. So that, and then I've got an order for some trophies, what else? I've got about 15 things. I've never been busier in my life than I am now that I'm retired,
That's what I say. What are you doing now? You know, I don't know. Well, you have a lot to do.
I do have a lot to do. Yeah, I think I'm in the midst of finishing up I always make a mock up of what I'm going to do in inexpensive material and show it to the client. And then I'll bring it back and make it on the expensive stuff. I'm making this sign in curly maple. I don't know if you know what that is or not, but it's a very light colored wood with real pretty natural designs in it. And it's very expensive. And so I don't want to, do the sign and then have them tell me, oh, we don't like this at all.
Oh, no, that wouldn't be fun.
I'm busy all the time. I'm making furniture for my children. I want to leave them something. I made a jewelry box for my granddaughter. That's pretty. I don't know if I sent you a picture of that, but it's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
It's got roses carved in it and really nice.
Still artistic. Has never stopped. Yeah. So.
Yeah, kind of like the dogs,
Yeah, for sure.
So I made toy box. Did I send you a picture of the toy box?
I think you sent me a picture of the toy box. Yeah.
All those little figurines on that toy box are raised. so that the kids can actually feel them and play with them. And then they have ABCs on the one end and 1 through 100 on the other end.
Wow.
It's it's really, I'm very proud of those.
How did you have time to talk to me?
I made 2 of those, one for each one of my grandsons. So
that's amazing, man. Good for you.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
And really fun. I have a really fun life. I've always had a fun life, got to travel, and I mean, I met all kinds of really interesting people, famous people and not famous people, and good dog people, and I had a whiz bang of a life.
Well, we all got to watch most of it, or a lot of it anyway. So
I'm not done yet.
What's that? You're not done yet, exactly. You're still working. Well, I appreciate your time, Dan, and I'll let you get back to your woodworking, your dogs, and everything else you do. And I appreciate you giving up time to come and talk to me.
So, well, I really appreciate you.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
And congratulations on the wonderful career you had, too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, hopefully we'll cross paths somewhere at some show.
Hey, if you make it out this way, you let me know. I'll go wherever you are.
Palm Springs. I'm coming out to Palm Springs.
Oh no, that's about 14-hour drive from
I'm
here.
doing Palm Springs and then Portland. So.
Oh, you're going to Portland?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm from the show site at Portland. I'm about 30 minutes away.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My friend John Routen is a member of that club, I believe. So.
Oh.
Oh, good. That'd be great.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, you take care, and again, thanks again. I really appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Dan.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Dan. That was great. It was great to catch up with you. Remember, if you like what you're seeing here, press the like, share, and subscribe button. If you want to find out what's happening with me, go to willalexander.net. If you want to get a hold of me, go to dogshowtips@gmail.com. And don't forget about the Dog Show Drive, our podcast, Wayne Kavanaugh and myself, every Thursday. Take care, guys.